first, I want to tell you a little bit about them. Senator Randy Becker first served in the legislature in 2009. She represents the 2nd Legislative District in the Washington State Senate, where she serves as chair of the Senate Republican Caucus. She currently serves on 3 Senate standing committees: Health and Long-Term Care, Rules, and the Budget Writing Ways and Means Committee. She is also a leader on the Public Records Task Force and the Washington Telemedicine. Since joining the legislature, Senator Becker has worked to improve the lives of Washingtonians through common sense solutions to complex issues. Her focus has been on removing the burdens on small businesses, making higher education more affordable and accessible, and improving the state's healthcare system. And a third-generation Washingtonian, Senator Becker has lived in the area all her life. She grew up in Enumclaw on a dairy farm. After high school, she attended Green River Community College and Highline Community College. Senator Becker has worked as a flight attendant, a realtor in Pierce County, a medical receptionist, and a medical practice administrator. Her husband, Bob, is an Air Force veteran, and they live in Lacey. Prior to moving to Thurston County, the two owned and operated a 20-acre farm outside of Eatonville for nearly 20 years. Bob has worked in trucking and has been a Teamster member, Local 174 and 313, for 39 years. They both enjoy fishing and hunting and working together in the yard. Her and her husband are the proud parents of 2 grown daughters and the proud grandparents of 2 boys and a girl. Senator Ann Rivers serves parts of Clark County in the 18th Legislative District. She became the district senator in 2012 after serving in the House of Representatives. Senator Rivers serves on several Senate committees, which includes Policy and Fiscal Committee experience in early learning and K-12 education and transportation. She is in her 5th year on the Senate Republican leadership team as the caucus whip. Her legislative priorities include strengthening Washington's economy, protecting the state's taxpayers by prioritizing and controlling state spending, and making sure the projects Southwest Washington needs for a solid transportation system are moving forward. Her work on the Education and Budget Committees put her at the center of the successful multi-year effort completed in 2018 to overhaul the state's outdated education funding system and offer each child in Washington an opportunity to succeed in school regardless of residential or economic status. Back home, Senator Rivers works at the Tri-Mountain Golf Course in North Clark County. She also operates a governmental and public affairs consulting firm in La Center, where she resides with her husband, Fred, and sons, Rex and Derek. She has a bachelor's degree in political science and a secondary education teaching certificate. She is active in her community, belonging to Greater Clark County Rotary and other organizations, and volunteering for events such as the American Cancer Society's West Clark County Relay for Life, where she's the publicity chairwoman. She also has served or is serving on the board of directors for several organizations, including Innovate Washington. So right now, I'm going to turn the time over to Senator Becker.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you very much for everybody for attending Rhonda's kickoff event. It's too bad it has to be virtually, but that's the way it is right now. I just want to say a few things about Rhonda, and then I'm going to introduce her to you. I've known Rhonda for over 20 years. We were actually neighbors up in Eatonville, and it's been an amazing thing watching her raise her family and all set up for the Boy Scout events that they would host up on their place. And the kids would be there in mass camping. And so their participation in the Scout program has been absolutely amazing to me. I want to say that Rhonda and Roland, just like any one of us in the 2008 recession as a builder, they faced all of the same pitfalls that a lot of us faced, and their business was hit extremely, extremely hard, and yet they recovered and they have held true to their beliefs and they came out better for it. Rhonda's been really active in our community, and I've personally watched her bring people together that I don't think I could have ever brought together, to where they talked, they compromised, and they made decisions. And that's what we need down in Olympia. I really have to say that Rhonda's been down in Olympia multiple times. She has been active in testifying, in reaching out to representatives and to senators alike. And her involvement down there has been something that I've not seen from any of the other candidates like Rhonda. I've watched her over the years. We've had so many discussions. And you know, the thing is she stood out. She stood out beyond anybody else that came down to Olympia. And it was because of her caring, her articulate manner in speaking, and her drive to actually get something done. And I think that's what we need down in Olympia right now. I'm just going to say a few more things about her because there's so many things that I could say, but she's not she's not a career politician. She genuinely wants to hear from, help, and support the people of our community. And, you know, when I ran for my first election, people asked me why I was running and my elective experience. And I was honest and said, I don't have any experience, but I want to give back. And this is Rhonda's time right now. Her thoughts are fresh, her ability is there, and she is out to support this community. So I've endorsed her in her election process. I've contributed to her election process, and I hope that you all recognize in her what I saw. And so without further ado, I want to introduce you to Ronda Litzenberger, the next senator in the 2nd Legislative District.
Thank you so much, Randy. That is such a gracious presentation. Thank you so much. I want to thank each of you for joining me this evening. We are certainly living in unprecedented times. It feels as though we are on board a small boat that's been cast out to navigate a sea of shifting values while being surrounded by the darkness of our times. This last year has been much like a rising storm sweeping across the ocean. We've experienced swelling waves of economic prosperity that's lifted us to great heights, and only to suddenly be plunged into the depths of uncertainty and fear. We're all searching for a safe harbor of protection. We are hoping for the day that the winds cease and the sun casts its rays of hope once again. That day will come, and when it does, we will look back and we will see more clearly the courage, kindness, and compassion that kept us anchored to our hope for the future. But there is work to be done. It will be important, hard, and uncomfortable work. It will require someone that's willing to listen to the needs of the community and prioritize economic recovery and put in the extraordinary effort that it takes to get things done. These are new circumstances that will require a new way of thinking. We need a senator with a fresh perspective and a desire to build bridges of understanding rather than walls of segregation. For almost 12 years, I've represented my community on the local and state level as a school board director. As a member of the Legislative Committee for Washington State School Directors Association, I've gained a deep knowledge and understanding of the education funding, which comprises 52% of the state budget. I know the inequities and I know the inefficiencies that need to be addressed. I've drafted legislative proposals, debated implications of policy, and most importantly, I've reached out to talk to those who would be directly affected by policies. We need to hear their boots on the ground perspective before we move legislation forward. I've testified to committees and subcommittees. I've gone toe-to-toe with OSPI and worked shoulder to shoulder with elected officials from Seattle to Skamania. My experiences have given me an understanding of the inner workings of our state government. When it comes to small business issues, property rights, and education, I'm not going to waste my time getting caught up to speed. I'll be ready to hit the ground running. Legislative members know me as a person of integrity, conservative values, and strong moral character. There is tremendous power in building relationships on both sides of the aisle. There are difficult days ahead, and as a minority party member, the ability to hold meaningful, persuasive dialogue with all stakeholders will be key. As a small business owner that has been deemed non-essential and lived through the Great Recession, I know my firsthand impact that government policies can have on your ability to succeed. Protecting property owners from taxation, zoning restrictions, and extreme environmental regulations is very important to me. We need a senator that has felt the burden of being responsible for an employee's paycheck and knows the impact a recession can have on their business. My personal experience gives me a perspective that will benefit the 2nd District. Our economy right now is much like a ship taking on water. We need to focus on how to most effectively bail it out. President Reagan once said, "Government does not solve problems, it subsidizes them." And I couldn't agree more. In times of financial crisis, we cannot afford to continue to subsidize bad legislation. Looking at additional taxes to right a sinking ship is not the correct approach. We need to find ways to lighten the load for businesses by providing incentives, enabling them to hold on just a little bit longer. Policymakers should focus on stimulating the economy by addressing regulatory reform, deferring quarterly taxes, and putting a freeze on government hiring and budget increases. We will weather this storm. We cannot forget who is at the helm. This is a time of unrest and distrust and uncertainty, and we can overcome it if we stand for our values and focus on fiscal responsibility. I am deeply invested in preparing the next generation to lead this country. I know that our future rests with our children. I have great hope and admiration in the ability of our students. When we take time to teach our youth about the importance of hard work, self-reliance, and strong moral character, we empower them to use their voice for the cause of freedom. I have dedicated countless hours to our youth, and every opportunity has given me a renewed hope and faith in the next generation. In closing, I would like to share with you a quote by an American theologian. His name was James Freeman Clark. "A politician is a man who thinks of the next election, while a statesman or stateswoman thinks of the next generation." I am not a career politician. I am a passionate advocate. With the hope of a better future and a desire to represent you, I promise to bring the same passion to the issues that impact the 2nd District that I've dedicated to the education. And with that, Sarah, I'm going to turn the time over to you. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, Rhonda. We received some questions for Rhonda, and thank you to everyone who submitted those questions. This evening, we only have time to address a few. So if your question doesn't get answered tonight, then feel free to email Rhonda. Her email address is litzenbergerrhonda@gmail.com. So for our first question, Rhonda, where do you stand on the issue of police brutality and systemic racism?
Boy, this is the time that has all become so clear, and I'm absolutely heartbroken by the loss of George Floyd and now Manuel Ellis and others at the hand of racism. I stand against systemic racism in any form. I'm appalled by the behavior of those police officers that were involved in those actions. They cannot be justified. No one supports their behavior, but I have to stand with the men and women of all races that put their lives on the line to protect us every day. I'm so grateful for those who serve with honor. We need to work to protect both citizens and law enforcement, and I think we can do that by putting some best practices in place. I think we need to give law enforcement the tools and skills to de-escalate volatile situations. A few things that we could consider: they should wear body cameras for the protection of the citizens as well as protection of the law enforcement agent. We could do training on unbiased policing, crisis intervention training, which would give the law enforcement skills on how to assess and approach people who are in mental health crisis. Verbal de-escalation training, and providing officers with equipment and training for non-lethal response options. I think those are all things, and this is going to be hopefully a time soon of healing, where we can reach out to one another and we can support each other, and we can again become knit together as a country and a society and show love and kindness for one another and support, particularly for those who put their lives on the line for us every day as well.
All right. Why are you just now getting into politics, whereas other candidates have long careers of doing so?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question. I've been involved in the process for many years. I've been in Olympia advocating. I've been there presenting legislation. I've been there sometimes passionately for and sometimes passionately against legislation that's been put forward. I was given the opportunity, I was selected to be one of 3 school board directors in the state to participate in the comprehensive sex ed work group. And during that time, we spent all of the summer and the fall really listening and talking about what would be involved in the legislation for comprehensive sex ed. And I was very surprised that I was the only one in that 15-person panel that was opposed. And not only was I the only one that was opposed, at least 58% of the people that were polled were additionally opposed. And so it was my assumption that I would have the opportunity when it came time to present to the legislative committees that they would give a pro side and also an against side. And I was not given that opportunity. I was barely given a nod even in the report that was submitted back to the legislature. And it was at that time, as I sat in that room looking across the dais, and I thought, I need to be on the other side. I need to be where I can be heard, where I can have impact, where I can help other people understand the perspective that needs to be on behalf of our communities. So that was really the final impetus for me to step forward and to move in. But I'm very familiar with Olympia, and I've had many opportunities to be there.
All right. So your website says that you will support policies that will allow families to have access to health care at an affordable price. What kind of reform would you suggest?
Well, I think it's been very interesting that I've learned a lot about these issues. And what I'm finding is that needs to be a multifaceted approach. There is no one right answer, but I think if we can get multiple people to start working together, then we are going to be able to move really affordable health care. So we're going to have to look at insurance reform. We're going to need to allow a free market competition from outside borders. We may have to consider allowing high deductible, low cost insurance, and then giving some flexibility on insurance company for health metrics, for healthy lifestyles. Not everybody needs maternity insurance. We're going to need to look at tort reform, legislation that will protect medical professionals. There is so much money spent on defensive medicine and defensive testing that if we had some protections for medical professionals, common sense protections, that would be helpful. I think we're also going to have to look at really encouraging urgent care versus emergent care. And the way we're going to need to do that is we're going to have to increase reimbursement perhaps for primary care providers. If we want to get more doctors to go into primary care practice, we need to incentivize them and really make that practice be financially attractive. It's very, very expensive to go to medical school, and they are looking at financial implications as they leave. We're also going to have to look at FDA restrictions and regulations to reduce pharmaceutical costs and the costs of creating and pharmaceuticals. So and I don't have all the answers. I would be foolish to say that I had all of the answers, but I know that those are some of the things that we could look at to try to move that work forward.
Okay. Do you think we have time for one more?
Sure.
Okay. How would you address the housing affordability crisis?
I think that this is an issue that really is impacting everyone right now, not just low income affordability. This is impacting the everyday person who live and work among us. 20 years ago, my husband and I own a construction development company. 20 years ago, we could get a building permit for $600. That same permit for that same building in the same area is running now about $30,000. That is before we even break one blade of grass on. So that's adding $30,000 just right there in impact fees. So I think we're really going to have to look at impact fees. Again, this is going to be it has to be a multi-pronged approach. There has to be a state responsibility and a local responsibility. The state is really responsible for looking at the expansion of the urban growth boundaries. Maybe we could update the goals and provide infrastructure to support growth. That's a big problem. Once there is no land available, lots become very expensive. We need to consider environmental impact regulations and how they're impacting the cost of development. And we need to consider tax incentives to encourage affordable housing. There's no reason for someone to go into a deficit to build a home when they can make money. So we really need to look at incentives. Local government needs to advocate for reform of their comprehensive plans, and they need to assess the cost of construction development and really look closely at the permit fees, the impact fees, and inspection fees. And even that could be just as simple as allowing those to be paid at the end of construction prior to beginning. I think that would, even those small changes would make a difference. The last thing that is very important, and this is a direct result of the recession, is we are lacking in skilled workforce. We need to encourage our students to really get involved in the trades. They are really they require a specific skill set, and they pay well, and there's no reason that people shouldn't be in them. It's just that so many that will help really mitigate some of our expenses as well.
Thank you for your thoughtful answers. So next we're going to watch a short campaign video, and as soon as that video is over, then we're going to hear from Senator Rivers.
As your senator, I will stand for family values, protect small businesses and property rights. As a small business owner, cattle rancher, and Eatonville native, I will be your voice in Olympia. I'm Ronda Litzenberger, and I approve this message. I know our best days are ahead, and we'll get there together.
You're on, Anne. Except for that you're muted right now.
How's that? Okay. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us tonight. Rhonda, thank you so much for putting yourself out there. This is probably one of the hardest things that you're ever going to do, because you'll learn things about yourself that you had no idea were true. And of course they won't be. And it's hard on you, it's hard on your family, but I think that that your willingness to step up, your willingness to continue your service in a very different environment is admirable. And I'm really just so honored that you would even consider coming to Olympia to serve with us. I actually have only known Rhonda for a very short time, but I want to take a step back and talk a little bit about Senator Becker. So Senator Becker and I work very well together, but there are times when we are we have strong opinions, we're strong women. And when Randy came to me and said, there's really only one candidate who best represents the views and values of the district that I can support, I knew that I needed to get to know Rhonda. Since that time, have just been so impressed. I've been in politics for a long time, and it seems to me that so many of the candidates want to take a shortcut. They want to attack their opponent. They want to, I always say, tear down someone else's building to make theirs look taller. And with Rhonda, it is such a delight that day after day, she uses her skill to build her building so that she doesn't have to tear anyone else's down. It will always be the tallest building. I also love that Rhonda knows her way around Olympia. I can tell you, I've served in the House, I've served in the Senate, and it's always amazing to see a freshman legislator come in and they spend several months just figuring out where the bathrooms are. I know, because of the work that Rhonda has done already on behalf of the people of the 2nd District, I know that she won't be burning any daylight in trying to address the quality of life issues that are impacting all of us right now, but really are impacting the 2nd District in a sort of a disproportionate way. And so I said to Randy, look, Randy, if she's good enough for you, she's definitely good enough for me. But then after getting to know Rhonda, understanding her character, understanding her skill set and her drive to make sure that she's doing the right thing all the time with the very best information. I can say now that Rhonda is the injection that we need in Olympia. We are going to miss Randy so very much. And probably keep her on speed dial, but I think that Randy will be able to be away knowing that the work that she began, the style of leadership that she has displayed, is also found in Rhonda, and that legacy will be carried on. I don't think that people really understand how much we ache for our constituency when they haven't gotten their unemployment check, when they can't afford their medicine, when they are wondering how they're going to make the mortgage payment, when they're really concerned that their children are going to be learning things in school, in elementary school, that really could be reserved for high school in regard to sex education. We fret these things, we lose sleep over these things because we care deeply about our communities and we care deeply about the people whom we represent. And I can say that I believe that Rhonda will share that. I believe that she's already there. She's been doing it. She's battle tested. She's been through it all. And so for her to come to Olympia, be effective on day one, ask the hard questions, and be that intermediary between her people and their government, I just don't see how the second district could do any better than Rhonda, and I'm just thrilled to be able to support her.
Thank you. All right, I am going to share some information with you. For that, I need to. Okay, so what you're seeing right now is an example of how your donation would help the campaign. And so $100 buys 20 yard signs, or would help us contact 166 constituents. There's no doubt that to run a campaign requires money, and so we let me just get back to my other information. I want to give you some other examples. A $300 contribution would help us contact 500 households directly, or allow us to make another video like what you saw today. Distribution would purchase 33 large yard signs, or would give us the ability to contact 833 households through mailers. A $1,000 contribution would help us be able to make 3 more videos, or give us the ability to contact 1,666 households. And a $5,000 contribution would allow us to not just create a few more videos, but also contact over 6,000 households. We have another event going on right now. We want to invite you to walk, jog, or run our virtual Race to Victory 5K. The cost for registration is $35, and every participant receives a t-shirt, and there is a plaque for the fastest runner, the first to finish, and the most patriotic. So put on your American flag shirt and paint your face in red, white, and blue and join us in the race to victory. Right now, our current fundraising goal is $50,000. And I hope that you will agree with me when I say that Rhonda is the best candidate for Washington State Senate to represent the second legislative district. So each of us can do our best to help her win this race to the Senate so she can represent us. You can donate by going to www.neighborsforronda.com. That's also where you would register for the virtual 5K. And that's all we have for this evening. We hope that you'll be safe and healthy and have a good night.
Thank you all for coming. I'm so grateful for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you, Anne. Have a great evening. Goodbye,
You
all.
too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.